Nemesis.
Log number 5-22. Reese. Callie was pregnant, you dumb brute. We're expecting a baby. We're in love. Ever since we were kids, we've been in love. We knew that much in our naive little hearts. And they killed our families and separated us for many years. And now you've killed the love of my life. I could never forgive you. And when the time comes, your death will be long and painful. I'll make sure of that. All I wanted to do was to cleanse the world from these powers too dangerous to be possessed by anyone, and eradicate the power-hungry guild, seize its existence, bring my revenge to their doorstep for what they did to my family and how irreversibly they ruined our lives. I was born on Chilla, a planet of ice, what of any warmth, with all emotions and happiness being permanently frozen. My father was Chiz and my mother was human. I was always different, always stood out with my caramel-colored skin that was far from a typical blue. Chiz are not the most open-minded or tolerant. They have a superiority complex. Felt as if Callie was the only person who accepted me for who I was, without any hidden agendas. So it's only natural that our love for each other developed quickly. We were inseparable. Her parents held a prominent position in Chiz society. They were the key figures, dealing in interplanetary affairs, while my parents led a simple life. My father was a manual laborer betrayed and an altruist at heart, a non-profit pedagogue in his free time, teaching disenfranchised youths about the ways of Jedi, holding sacred classes on their doctrines. I've learned of it by sneaking out of the house and eavesdropping a few times on those classes of his. Kelly and I were always together, thinking when we grow up, we'll get married, not knowing that what we were doing would be seen as taboo in the eyes of adults, something prohibited, and even if we did know, our love was way too strong to falter. Her father caught us kissing one day, and he forbade me from seeing her ever again. After that very day, I hadn't seen her for ages, and my family was murdered shortly after. Explosions were set off in our house. As it was collapsing, my family huddled around me, covering and protecting me like a helpless child I was. I couldn't do anything to prevent it, to stop that nightmare, to snap myself awake. This is the time I got my first injuries. My body changed permanently. It morphed into something else. I've changed irrevocably. That day, that happy-go-lucky guy known as Reese Blur ceased to exist, laying in debris for days, and I stayed between life and death, with the hatred and anger brewing inside me. Finally, an old man found me. He wasn't much of a man. He had reptilian facial features, with snake-like eyes, menacing gaze, and willowy long-armed body, scaly black and blue texture for skin, a Sith Lord, mostly known to his victims as Darth Serpentine. As he described to me, there had been a spark of the Force. A few days prior, they sensed and followed its trail, which ultimately led him to me. I didn't even think there were any Force users left around, let alone myself being one of them. It came as a shock. He took me in, nursed me back to physical health, and helped me with my injuries to an extent, physical ones only. And once I was able to move freely, he started training me in the ways of the Sith. It didn't take me long to notice the evil inside of him. It was practically pouring out, oozing out of his scaly surface. But my only choice was to make a deal with the Vile if I wanted to survive and become strong, the necessary evil. Over time I've learned that he was a Sith Lord who didn't participate in any major Sith Jedi events. He went into hiding long ago, has always remained in the shadows, keeping his existence a secret. That's how he managed to stay alive, unlike the others who perished fighting for their causes. While he was in hibernation-like state, old age was not a factor for him. He shed his humanity to fully commit to the dark side and become immortal. However, I was a perfect protege for him, a kid full of anger in his heart that was craving for nothing else but to become stronger, to carry out a bloodlust of revenge. I didn't have any ideals back then. All I knew was rage. He told me that Mercenary Guild was involved in my family's death, so that was who I placed my sights on and directed my anger towards. According to him, my cousin and her family were targeted as well and didn't make it. Serpentine didn't know for sure what exactly prompted these unprecedented attacks on our family, but said it had something to do with chess-related politics. On the other hand, I was his link to the outside world. Since he never showed his reptilian face around others, I was his avatar, communicating whatever needed to be communicated to whomever. For years we stayed together, and he told me all he knew about the Force and combat in the best tradition of the rule of two, like a true Sith Lord he was. A master and his apprentice, side by side. Knowing that my father was a Jedi sympathizer, I thought my parents' death was directly linked to the Jedi-related folk betraying them and maybe having the guild take care of their dirty business, to keep their righteous hands clean. From what I've gathered, I didn't see much difference between the Jedi and the Sith. They were both as bad historically, both super destructive. Over those years of training and becoming older, maturing and shaping up into a person, I've decided the Force was the power too great to be possessed by anyone. So once I've gotten all the knowledge I could from my teacher, the only choice I was left with was to put an end to his evil, prevent it from spreading any further. We descended into the tombs of the Sith Temple on the planet Corbin, the homeworld of the Sith and their academy. There was nothing but ruins at that point. It was where he showed me the ultimate story of Sith's knowledge, giving me access to the terminal to learn and take it all in. That day, I became a Sith assassin in all senses of the word. I beheaded my teacher, took his saber, left his remains in the tomb. From then on, I was on the hunt to locate and acquire kyber crystals and to exterminate any Force users. Only later I learned that Serpentine had achieved immortality through cannibalism, feeding on the flesh of his students that he'd raised. The stronger the Force was in them, the longer it extended his miserable existence, giving him a gift of eternal life. He was grooming me from the start. I was nothing but a long-awaited dessert at the end of the road, prepped for years to be consumed. He taught me a lot, but was the furthest from being a father figure to me, my immortal enemy. He told me all this himself. He wasn't that easy to shut up. His severed head kept on living without the rest of the body, kept on yapping away, revealing the sinister secret of his existence, going on and on for days on end until I got fed up with it and stuffed it in a cryo tank. It's here on the ship right now, still alive, frozen in place. From then on, as the bluer part of myself had perished, long before under the rubble of my family home, I decided to adopt my mother's last name and be known as Reese Caliber. The person carrying that name, you might have guessed by now, doesn't exist on paper. No public records of me out there after the family's tragic death on Chilla. And I would only reveal this new name to someone I was about to claim the life of, as a gesture of honor for a victim to know the name of the executioner, the only honorable tactic I've ever employed. That's how you go to know my name, but yet you're still standing. What a shame. To everyone else, anyone random I've encountered, I was known under the alias of Vulcan, an up-and-coming Pazark champ, taking odd jobs here and there. With the Force on my side, I could never lose. Vulcan was the name Serpentine planned on bestowing upon me once my training was complete, but we know now my future was never calculated into his plans, naming me Darth Vulcan probably right before he was about to consume me. My first target was the elite bounty hunter squad that was tasked to execute my family, which they mostly succeeded at, except for the only one who would go on to haunt them forever, like a ghost from the past. Most of these mercs were already dead or retired, but best believe I found each and every one of them. It took me less than a year. I hunted them all across the galaxy, took my time with every one of them too. Barely anyone remembered the mission on Chilla. It was just another day for them. Nothing special, so I really had to remind them, cutting off one limb at a time, making them choke on their blood after hours of torture. Over time, the word has spread around the guild and bounty hunter circles that there was a maniac on the loose, a complete psycho assassin torturing and brutally killing mercs. However, these killings never made the news, as the guild wanted to preserve their image of power. They want to appear weak and helpless. Everything was kept on the hush-hush and swept under the carpet. I graduated from being a man to just existing as a killing machine. Working on my plan, I was taking care of mercenaries that worked for the guild here and there. My quote-unquote profession involved a lot of travel, so I was always on the move. In the back of my mind I was always searching for Kelly, preserving the hope to stumble upon something that can lead me to her. I couldn't just accept her no longer being here. When I was walking down the streets of Corson, randomly I saw a poster of an opera singer with a beauty I'd only seen once before. I thought to myself, am I daydreaming? It can't be. I need to go and see for myself, see with my own eyes to know for sure. Lo and behold, I visit the performance and the singer does look exactly like her. Blue skin, red eyes, more mature, more beautiful, full-grown woman, no other but my first love, my only love, my Callie. Her voice is magnificent too. When we were kids, she loved to sing. I would just sit there and listen with my eyes closed in bliss, taking it all in, enjoying her sweet melodic voice. No wonder she'd chosen to pursue this as her career. I sneak in backstage after the performance is over. We are face to face. Callie is in shock too. She says she kept hope that was still out there, as my body was never discovered after the tragedy. We cry in each other's arms until there are no tears left, and then we finally lay together as our bodies, deprived of love, finally join in a physical and spiritual union. After so many years of torment, too many years being apart, I get to tell Callie how I never lost hope as we rekindle our bond, falling in love all over again, feeling the same emotions we felt as kids. My world is rocked, it flips upside down, priorities change. Now I have someone to live for, now there is hope for a future together. Nevertheless, before I could step away from my dangerous affairs and we could live as a happy family, I need to put an end to the mercenary guild for good, to ensure all the evil is suppressed before bringing a child into this world. As my search for the force users to exterminate didn't produce any results, I shifted my focus to taking possession of all of the kyber crystals out there, which according to my calculations and research, the guild was entrusted with one. Only one kyber crystal was known to the government that they granted to mercenary guild for protection. It was passed down from one guild master to the next to take care of. Mercenary guild is a neutral entity with a lot of resources that have always operated autonomously, away from the ideologies, never taking sides between Empire or Republic, Jedi or Sith, light or dark disputes. They preserved on their own through historical calamities. The guilds never involved themselves with the politics. Their conglomerate is meant to make credits and handle problems anyone is willing to pay for. The new government, New Republic, just used the guild to do their dirty work, regularly making donations to their cause, pumping resources into the company, essentially paying for their services like anyone else, to have the guild cleaning all potential secret dangers before they can even occur, and be in the bank to the most precious possession of great power, a kyber crystal. Why would the government decide to give up the kyber crystal instead of keeping it for later use if needed be? Because they didn't have any force users, no one to wield it, so it was just a form of currency for them, mostly a relic, a generational jewel, a sign of trust in a working relationship beneficial to both parties. The first guildmaster I killed, I've been following their convoy for a few weeks until they reached the original home of Mercenary Guild on Tatooine. I tampered with the speeder bikes they were using to cross the desert. It was nothing but their blood marking the ground around the crash site, bodies buried in the middle of nowhere, covered up naturally by the wind knocking the sands around. Unfortunately for me, this guildmaster did not possess the crystal, so I dropped off his head on their headquarters' front step to send a message that they are not safe. Next time, I disabled the security system and slipped into another location of the guild on Navarro, which seemed to serve a purpose of some sort of a storage facility or library. There, I uncovered classified docs with a list of all the best mercenaries not shown on any public records, enigmas who were active, deceased, or retired. In short, a list that contained info on the best assassins in the history of the guild. Those where we've gotten the info on you from, Judo, a candidate in our master plan. Your name was at the top of the list with outstanding career stats, achieved in a pretty short span of years. It said that you were no longer active in the field and publicly you were pronounced dead, but actually, despite what the public was privy to, you were retired, and also it did include your whereabouts at that time. Guess the guild always keeps an eye on their former henchmen. Callie was the one who came up with the plan to use you against the guild. You fit the profile, a perfect man to frame, a former top mercenary settling his old scores with his employers. With your involvement, we believe we could make the guild implode and blame it all on you, make you a scapegoat while keeping our hands clean. She told me that she became an opera singer besides her obvious love of singing, partially in order to get in with the upper class important folk, to rub shoulders and have influence, to be in a position to make a change in society, to be able to dictate the course of politics while on paper not being involved with them, be a public figure using not only her vocal talent but also diplomatic tongue of persuasion, on par with Jedi Sith mind hypnosis, which you felt before firsthand like a spell that made you abandon your regular life and do everything we wanted you to do. Judo, you scum. Kelly was the only good person in this putrid world, striving to make a better place for the future generations. With her position, she managed to open up a charity that supported immigrant families displaced during warlike conflicts, doing the fundraising at the places like Astral Gate and Kajino, the only reason she attended them, all for a good cause. The truth is, my poor Kelly, all she ever wanted was for me to stop and for us to settle down and start a family. She was a diplomat at heart, always looking multiple steps ahead, always smart and calculated. The first Bazak tournament was all an organized act to test you. Everyone involved was an actor that thought they were a part of some interactive theater performance. Kelly was the one who thought of it, got the performance from the theater using her opera connections. It was all smoke and mirrors to verify that you were the man, to prove the legend of Judo Borealis contained in those classified docs of the guild. We had to be sure before we were about to pull the plug on the whole operation, and you passed. We'd been trying for some time with no success, but right before we went to Kajino, Callie told me that she was pregnant, expecting our baby, a new life growing in her belly. I was ecstatic, beyond happy, a product of our endless love, Callie and I as parents. It was a dream turning into reality. That's why I couldn't let you live. When this dirty business were to be done, I couldn't leave any witnesses roaming the galaxy. We're going to keep around anyone who'd been involved in our plan and knew some of our secrets and could jeopardize my family's future. And look where it got us. Before meeting up with you, Judo, for the last time at the restaurant on Coruscant, she told me the truth about my parents' death, something she was keeping away from me all these years, for my own good and safety, that it was her father who was a cog that initiated it all. He leaked the info about my father's Jedi connections to punish my family because of the innocent love of Kelly and I, and when he realized what he had done, it was already too late. The execution was already set in motion. The guild was just doing what they were ordered to do. It was the government to blame. After the Empire's fall, the Chess Civil War ensued, which led to bloody separation from anything Empire surviving. A new republic since then wanted to keep everyone in check and do everything needed to suppress any potential Jedi, Sith or Empire followers to avoid reverting back to the old ways at all cost. I didn't see a bigger picture back then, but she always did. She knew if she had told me earlier, it would be no stopping me until I took everyone out, killing myself in the process, all the higher-ups. But since I've learned that she was pregnant and we were about to welcome a baby into this world, I was ready to stop. Callie wanted guarantees, and for the first time, she decided to go a bloodshed route that was all too familiar to me, a reckless choice, and have me get rid of our most dangerous opponent, Judo Borealis, to neutralize our last standing enemy who could endanger our family's safety, feed you some truth to lure you in and destroy you, wipe the slate clean, but the plan backfired on her. Whatever remained of my heart is now forever broken, and from then on, I'm sure you already know how the rest of the story unfolds. Nemesis.